thanks for responding so positively to our invitation. We really appreciate it. In front of you is the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Minister Thandi Modise, and Deputy Minister Thabang Makwetla. Without any further ado, I'll ask Deputy Minister to read the statement, and after that we will take questions from the floor as well as online questions. Thank you very much. Thanks, TM.
I do it from the podium.
Yes, the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good day, and thank you for coming. The statement of the ministry on what we have asked you to come and listen to reads as follows. The fundamental principles of the Military Veterans Act emphasizes the need to redress the injustices of the past in the delivery of services and benefits to the community of military veterans, and further enjoins the rest of government to cooperate on the delivery of services to military veterans. The ministry acknowledges that it was its intention and wish to disperse the military pension by the 1st of December 2022, as it was originally communicated by the Deputy President, Honorable D.D. Mabuza. Nevertheless, consistent with our constitutional injunction to redress our past and honor those that fought for freedom, the Military Veterans Act of 2011 directed government to roll out socio-economic benefits to the community of military veterans. It is regrettable that the military veterans' pension had not been budgeted for in the previous years since the introduction or the passing of the Military Veterans Act of 2011. Through the intervention of the Presidential Task Team, priority will be given to members of the former non-statutory forces as the main target group to access this benefit. This military veterans pension will redress the imbalances of the past and bring to realization a benefit that is provided for in the Act. The process to roll out the pension payout will commence after the lapse of the 30 days after the tabling of the regulations in Parliament. The department will, in the meantime, take in applications and process them accordingly through the government pension processes and systems under GPAA. However, in the process of the implementation of this decision, we are confronted with unavoidable administrative processes which resulted in the delay in the payment of the pension benefits. One of these was the requirement that the draft pension regulations and the pension benefit access forms should be tabled in Parliament first. These were tabled in Parliament in early December. This will in turn legalize the operationalization of the pension of military veterans. We want to reassure the community of military veterans and reiterate that the government remains fully committed to the provision of the pension benefit to military veterans and has begun the necessary administrative processes. Government is fully conscious and aware of the financial challenges facing military veterans, particularly in the current difficult economic times, characterized by poor economic growth, joblessness, and persistent poverty. The Department of Military Veterans is working around the clock to ensure that the disbursement of the military veterans pension benefit is implemented as soon as possible. In order to avoid any further delays, we urge military veterans to register with the Department of Military Veterans on the database in order to qualify for the benefits provided by the department. The introduction of this pension, as it was announced, will be backdated to the 1st of April 2022. A fully completed military veterans pension benefit application form should be accompanied by an identity document and a certified birth, marriage, partnership certificate, and service certificate clearly indicating the first number of the applicant. Military veterans are urged to apply in person or through registered post. The correct address must be specified on the appropriate form, which can be found on the DMV website and provincial offices. These forms will be forwarded to the Government Pensions Administration Agency, GPAA, which is responsible for processing applications and paying out of this pension. The rollout is one of the most significant milestones in the ongoing work of the Department of Military Veterans to address the plight of military veterans. DMV will continue to ensure that qualifying military veterans are provided with the military veterans pension benefit support and that it is implemented in an effective, efficient, sustainable, and accountable manner. With respect to the social relief of distress, the Presidential Task Team has taken a decision that the military veterans should be paid the social relief of distress support amount of 1,250, which is topped up by the DMV. This would be a significant improvement of the previous 350 rents paid to the recipients of the social relief of distress grant. The department will find alternative ways to implement such support in an effective and equitable manner to ensure that all those eligible to this benefit receive it. We convey to the community of military veterans the sincere apology that the social relief of distress has not been rolled out among military veterans the way we had promised at the beginning of the work of the Presidential Task Team. The Department of Military Veterans provides funding to eligible military veterans and their dependents who wish to pursue studies in public institutions within the Republic of South Africa. We urge military veterans and their dependents to apply. The Ministry is fully aware of the organizational, managerial, and leadership challenges faced by the Department of Military Veterans, which impact negatively on its ability and capacity to deliver services to the stakeholders. This is a matter that is receiving attention in the ministry, and we are committed to restoring the dignity of military veterans and to be aligned to the constitutional injunction to honor those who fought and sacrificed to bring about the democracy we enjoy today. End of statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. We are ready to take questions. If you have any question for Minister and Deputy Minister, we'll try to take 5 sets first. If it's more, we'll then move to the next set of questions. You'll introduce your name and the media house that you are representing, and then pose your question. We can start with you, ma'am, and then is that Derek? Power FM number 2, 3. Yeah, you can proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Alex Patrick from News 24. My query is to the Minister, and it's about the Lady R vessel, the sanctioned Lady R vessel that's sitting in Simonstown. We wanted to know whether you could confirm if you were warned about the vessel arriving, and if you could tell us what the vessel is loading or offloading. Thank you.
Thanks. Next question.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Thabo Molokwane from Power FM News. To the Deputy Minister, my question is based on, I didn't get to get the figures of how much was allocated for the budget for the disbursement. So my question is based on, previously we've heard of 37 million rand, which was allocated for 2022-2023 financial year, and then a further 102 million rands for 2023-2024, and 109 million rands for 2024 and 2025, which was previously announced by the Deputy President when he spoke about the issue here. So we just wanted to check what are the figures, how much is allocated for the disbursements, and also why has it taken so long? Because we know that the military veterans have been, raising these issues, saying that they need to be able to sustain themselves also. Why has it taken so long? And also, maybe just to confirm to us that, because the deadline was December, so you said it that obviously it needs to go to Parliament and all these processes that needs to be followed. So it means that the deadline for December falls through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
My name is Harold Adon. I'm from SACC MVA, South African Colored Corps Military Veterans Association. I just want to find out from the Deputy Minister. He mentioned that the pension is only for non-statutory forces. What happened with the statutory forces? Because we also protect our country and we complete our service, a 2-year service, and we never receive any pension from the previous government. So why do you sideline the statutory forces? And my other question to the Minister is, on the military veterans documents, they only mention MK, APLA, and Zania. SACC MVA is not mentioned in the documents, and we are also a recognized association. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Okay, well, I'll then, in the absence of further questions, I'll ask the principals to respond, and then from there, we'll go to online questions. Vanessa, you're ready now? Thank you very much. Minister India.
Thank you very much and good morning. I'll start with the last question. The colored military veterans. Why are we sidelining them? You are right. You are members of the SAMVA like all other military veterans. It is an umbrella body of all the fighting forces. It does not make a distinction between who was statutory or not statutory. It accommodates all the history and the cultural heritage of the different forces that have ever fought in this country. That's separate from recognizing that there were statutory forces within this country. Now, that is where the distinction comes in. It does not mean that when we say that members of Mkhonto Wesizwe, former members, when we say members of APLA and members of Azandla, the focus group, we are saying that all of them. Actually, not all of the members of APLA and MPE qualify for this particular benefit. Because you will remember that at the point of integration, different fighting forces, statutory fighting forces and non-statutory fighting forces were brought together to form the National Defence Force. Now, some of these, all the statutory forces, at that point, it was assumed that they had one, their salaries, Azandla, APLA, MK did not get salaries. They did not get any benefit. They did not get any pension allocations or contributions. They did not get any housing, nothing. So, but at the same time, when integration came, not all of these categories were able to come in. These three non-statutory forces was difficult if you were injured in Mkhonto Wesizwe for you to get, and you have post-trauma, to get treatment. That is where the distinction is. They had nothing. So when integration came, there was a deliberate inclusion in the agreement that you would recognize the services of the non-statutory. And recognition in law, we interpreted that the service, for instance, of one Thandi Modise, who was a member of Mkhonto Wesizwe for more than 20 years, would be recognized into a pensionable contribution, which if I integrated in 1994, I would not get. But it would go into the pension that I would get at the point when I retire from SANDF now. So they didn't get it. The people who got anything were those who were immediately demobilized. And they got a demob fund, and the highest paid was 20,000. And others got as little as 8, and those who were even younger got absolutely nothing. So you are now looking at the people who integrated, who become soldiers, who carry their ranks from the different statutory forces, but who at the point of retiring do not actually, a general who comes from APLA, at the same rank, does not retire with a pension equal to that of a general of SADF or a general of TDF or a general of the Ciskei Defence Force. I don't know if you get where we are coming. So this pension was supposed to enable people to deal with those discrepancies, because you were now trying to build a united a force, but also recognize the efforts of everybody who did not end up integrating, or who even after integrated chose to go somewhere. When we were in Cape Town DM, the Cape Corps representatives brought to our attention that we are discriminating, and we committed that we would look into what happened at the point of integration. What happened when people from BDF, Bophuthatswana Defense Force, came in? What happened there? Because it would be unfortunate when we pretend that they got equal benefits as those who came from the bush. And this particular benefit is supposed to address that discrepancy. It does not mean, and I am saying even in MK, not everybody is going to get this. It is to close the gap of those who could not translate their service into pension, and therefore, as they are members of the now Defense Force, continue to grow their pension payouts later on. So it is fine if we can come in, but as members of the of SAMVA, all the fighting forces are equal. They are not recognized this way or that way, and that is why when they have their conferences and activities, they are recognized in the same way. So if the Cape Corps wants to prove to us that in fact there is a discrimination because we did not actually, as the Cape Corps, get pensions and other benefits, that is a different matter that we can address. But to our knowledge, it's the three non-statutory forces that had absolutely nothing that went in and actually faced the abject poverty, bad health. And that is why we are saying, if you have been a member of SANDF, when you retired, your years in the Cape Corps should be recognized. That contribution, those years, at the point you joined, you were bringing in whatever benefits and you had been working on into this. That is our understanding. Then the other question is, ma'am, you are asking me, why did we take so long? We've been upfront that as the Department of Military Veterans is structured right now, mandate and structure don't always talk together. And that is why sometimes you get these very serious administrative delays and incoherences. We're working to correct that. Now, when you work to turn over a department, it takes a little bit of time because you don't just come with a big axe and a big hammer. You negotiate the space, you educate, you try and in fact understand and get the justification of why things are where they are and why they cannot be turned around, so that we focus on making sure that the military veterans get the benefit in time, in the quality that they deserve. You asking us about the Lady R, the vessel. I do not want to comment on the contents of this vessel because until I get all the paperwork, I will be guessing and I will be giving you hearsay. And tomorrow you will say I'm a liar, and I am very clear. I don't want to be called a liar. So I'm waiting for the paperwork. I'm waiting for the people who know. We do know, however, that whatever contents this vessel was getting were ordered long before COVID started. And therefore, the reason you are interested and America is interested in that vessel coming into our shores is actually because America threatens the rest of Africa, not just South Africa, of having anything that is even smelling of Russia. So, as far as they're concerned, we must consume all the Russian vodka quickly. And if it is depleted, you will be found wanting for drinking the Russian vodka. Now, this is a matter on which we really need to apply our heads. And to rush us into giving you rush responses, I don't think would be too clever. When we are ready, and it is a matter which also does not, because remember, these are two separate departments. Today we thought we were going to talk about military veterans. The issues of this vessel relate to the defense and the defense mandate and the defense industry, and has nothing to do with the military veterans who now just want us to focus in when, what quality, how soon they can get their benefits. DM, can you deal with the rest?
Thank you, Minister. The question around the deadline for the rollout of this pension is it's a well-placed concern. As we in the statement indicated, the most important detail with respect to the timing of the rollout is the observance of the 30 days that we must abide by following the tabling of the regulations in Parliament. And those regulations were tabled last week on Tuesday, if I'm not making a mistake. So we count our 30 days from that time. So in early January, we will commence the processing of applicants for this pension. The question about the discrimination of the statutory forces which the Minister has touched on. I just want to add that the policy to give military veterans a pension in South Africa, as reflected in the Act, was necessitated by the appreciation that in this community of former soldiers that we have, with different backgrounds, there was a specific group of military veterans who, with respect to their well-being, were challenged. And these were members of the non-statutory forces of yesterday who did not qualify for the special pension as a result of the age limitation that was in the Act, the Special Pensions Act, in that only military veterans not military veterans, those who were involved in the struggle, who at one point or another had been economically not active, either because they were in exile or because they were in jail or in detention for an accumulative period of 5 years, and whose age was above 35. Now, there were among members of the former liberation armies who were below age 35, who at the time did not qualify for the special pension. And even with the later interventions to drop again that age limitation, to bring in more of these military veterans who were of lower age groups. There were still others who were left behind. So the military veterans pension was targeting those military veterans. It is for that reason that this military veterans pension will not cover or will not be accessed by military veterans who are receiving or who are recipients of the special pension. And also, this pension will not include military veterans from the former statutory forces. The reason for it is that in our understanding, all the former statutory forces members were employees of government. They were civil servants. And the conditions of employment would have covered their plight in relation to pensions. There are military veterans who were, for instance, in SADF as a result of the national service system that was conscription, which was in place then. Those are not considered for the purposes of this pension because it was conscription. They were only in service for a limited period that was stipulated to do their national service, and they would go back to their civilian lives and continue to be economically active in whatever jobs they were holding, and their pensions would therefore be provided within that framework. So there is no military veteran from the statutory forces who would say, I do not have a pension. Those who were permanently employed, who were part of the permanent force of the SANDF, they have pensions in their remuneration policy of the time. Similarly, those who were in the TBVC state armies, in their employment, the conditions of service included pensions. As they leave, they exit the system today, the years for which they served are recognized in the pensions that they get. So it is for that reason that you have only this category of military veterans that is targeted to be the recipients of this military veterans pension that is being introduced. That is that I thought it's the details of the origins of the policy that I thought we should share with yourselves. And that there is no mention of the statutory forces in the regulations. It is for that reason that military veterans from the statutory forces are not mentioned, because as far as this policy is concerned, they have been catered for in one way or another by the system that was in place before, as far as the remuneration and pensions of employees. Of course, we must also explain that there has been a military pension that was introduced during the time of the conscription system. It was introduced in 1976 when the South African Defence Force, SADF, started the campaign, Operation Savannah, in Angola. And there were casualties that were being incurred by the force. In 1976, a military pension was introduced, which in essence was not a pension, but it was a compensation because it was only accessed by those who came back with the injuries or disabled in one way or the other. They were receiving that military pension as a payout that was monthly provided to the end of their lives. That is how it was structured. Not for all the conscripts, that were in the SANDF were receiving that military pension. That military pension was intended for those who came back with injuries or with disabilities of one kind or the other. I thought that we should also explain that that is what the government of the day thought was appropriate to look after the citizens that were pulled into the military establishment, and we cannot introduce policies to deal with what the state decided to have been policy 30 years ago. This is not the understanding or the intention of government introducing this military veterans pension. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Vanessa, do we have questions?
Yes, we do. We have two questions so far from Suman Naidoo from Durban. These questions are not necessarily related to the DMV's pension, but for the sake of following due sources, the first question is, can the Minister expand on the recent announcement by the President on the deployment of stand-up soldiers to Eskom power stations? What services will they provide? The second question, there's a growing concern that the energy crisis poses a huge risk to our national security as a country. Are measures being taken by the security cluster to minimize these negative effects? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. In the meantime, please distribute the statement. Minister Ndia.
Again, the question is related to DOD, not DMV. The responsibility of the Department of Defense is to ensure that life, limb, property, integrity, the ability of South Africa to defend herself against any is ensured. Now, integrity, which sovereign state can claim integrity if it allows its strategic infrastructure to be attacked at will? Because once you start doing what in fact, this last deployment to the substations was found was that you can't wake up one morning and simultaneously 8 substations are down. You can't walk into a substation and find that definitely your cables have been cut it away, and think this is about petty thieving. You can't begin to get, and those are the things that this contingent of the engineers and others that we deployed quickly to go see what is happening at those substations when we were approached and the President said, yes, please intervene. It is because when South Africans, when you cut power and water can't be pumped into pipes, who suffers? That protection of the individual citizen, that individual, especially the small business, that also buttresses the economy of this country, is now being sabotaged. When you find clear acts of sabotage, you do need to, as the National Defence Force, begin to say we can't sit back when we are supposed to step in. And it is in that context that when we were approached, we agreed to deploy. Now, if you look at the strategic routes, we know what happened, the strategic routes, which also had an impact on disturbing the relationship of this country, because when you closed off the entry, you were actually blocking off consignments of the neighboring countries from the ports into Malawi and the other countries. It's no longer just about South Africa. You're beginning now to damage the international standing, not only of South Africa, but you are affecting our relations with our neighbor, but you are affecting the region's economic integrity in between. And that is why we were quite clear that now when you begin to interrupt the ability of South Africa to define herself as a sovereign state, to grow the economy, to ensure that we do not have threats, because when people can't drink water, when you disturb the power, when you disturb food production and availability of food, you are actually fomenting uprisings and instability of the country. We don't want to get there. But to satisfy you South Africans, we deployed to go and intervene quickly with our engineering capacity to quickly try and restore the pumping ability of water by Eskom to ensure that we are not caught that flat-footed. Will this thing be a permanent feature? We hope not. We hope that the police, because it is their job, will arrest, but also appropriately charge the people who are causing these things, because this is not a petty crime. I can tell you on the last day, on the 20th, another substation was hit, I think Duba. They were disturbed because all the cable that they rolled, they couldn't cut away because they were disturbed by the security forces. So, yes, we will be available to make sure that the economy continues to grow and we continue to have our standing amongst other nations. Do we want this role internally? No, we don't want to. Soldiers are not trained for this. It is police work. But where necessary, we will step in and hand over to the relevant authorities. I hope it answers you.
Thanks, Minister. I understand there are additional questions from the floor. Can we take those? We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From Howard. I'm just coming back to the question because the Deputy Minister didn't answer in terms of the budget. How much has been allocated so far in terms of the disbursement? And also just the last question on the issue of housing for military veterans. Where are we in terms of issuing the title deeds? Because I know that most of them complain about the state of housing. Most of the houses, I think that they've been given to them, they are defective. So we just wanted to check in terms of that, has the department been able to, gather the list around and make sure that they provide the proper housing to them and those title deeds that they've been requesting for years? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Mulwa. In that order, you can follow each other.
Thank you. My name is Johan Masondo. I'm a military veteran. I just want to have some clarity on the social relief and distress. You've mentioned the 1,200. Because most of us during the COVID until now have not received the SASA 350 plus the top up from the Department of Military Veterans. Up till now, we have not received anything. So what is the process then now to apply for the SRD in terms of going forward? How do we go about applying for the social relief and the stress? The second question is that you are saying that some of the members will not qualify for the pension, even MK and some other members will not qualify for the pension. Does it then mean they can apply for the social relief and distress since they are not qualifying for the pension benefit? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question at the back?
Me, yes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Eric Lefleur, SABC MVA member. First of all, I've heard the Deputy Minister explaining about the SA Cape Corp as permanent members who don't qualify. Not all of us were permanent. We've served 2 years service. We didn't receive any pension. Secondly, we as, like we are called colors, you understand? We as colors, we are being sidelined. Now it's the military veterans we are not being part of, you understand? We've got our kids to look after. They are depending on us, of which we cannot supply or we cannot provide for them. Again, we are then being sidelined. We are not taken into consideration as citizens of this country as it is, you understand? You can go to any retail shop. How many colors do you find working for them? There are nobody there. When people, our people apply for jobs, they are being put aside. My son has been applying for this job for how long? He's still sitting without a job. I went to DMV to apply for him with skills. That is 2017. My son has been given the authority, no, you can go and study at Ekurhuleni Arts and Skills. Nothing has happened until today. He's still waiting, he's still saying. My firstborn son also wanted to study with the department, through the Department of Military Veterans. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. He couldn't wait any longer. He passed away in 2015. And I'm still sitting, trying to provide for the family because we've got a Department of Military Veterans that is looking after us, and we are not getting anywhere. People are looking for answers. Definitely my wife, I've lost even the application for a house. I've lost it because we are not qualifying. Really, we are not feeling good about it. Yeah, the integration that is really not happened for us well. So if that can also be taken into consideration. Some of us are still active, some of us can do, but we are not being considered. Please look after us. We are willing to do our best to be part of the country, to be part of the liberation that is still ongoing. We are willing to be, addressed as military veterans like all the others.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I think last question on this side.
Kevin is my name.
Yes, from?
From MK.
Okay.
From MK. Well, I don't know whether I've captured the Deputy Minister properly when he said those who are getting special pension will not qualify for the military pension. Did I capture it correctly?
You confirm?
Yes, you confirm.
Sorry?
Oh, you just needed confirmation that you understood him.
Yes.
Well, that was your question.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I think we are done. Anything online?
No questions online.
Nothing on the floor? Thank you very much.
I thought, I hope this is how you are going to deal with it. Okay. Thank you very much. Our understanding is that it is not going to be automatic that even these ones, I said even those from MK, APLA and Azanda, it's not automatic that all of them would get it. Remember, there's that issue of verification. There is also that little issue which is very tight of the means test. Now, you would not, in all fairness, allow a member who has a pension in excess because, let's take those who demobilized, became members or went into the administration and have been able to work out a pension, but still were able to get a special pension. And I think DM will elaborate on this point. But for instance, if your special pension, when you calculate, you're going to find that it's actually higher than what this special pension is payout per month is going to be. You will not be able to come to us and say, I'm grabbing this and grabbing this, because in the state there is no double dipping. You'd have to choose whether you continue with your special pension or whether the department closes you on this side and you move over to this one. So I do know that people, we are all desperate. What we need to do is maybe to begin when benefits come out, to begin to simplify things and to talk directly to structures so that we don't create expectation that guy. Everybody come. DM will go back to that issue, the 2-year conscription, and try and get into it. Because I will also want to say, DM, in the same vein, we do have an issue here, MSDS, where at the point of recruitment, the Department of Defense takes people who are young, energetic. And at the end of training, when now selection and confirmation and translation into the South African National Defence Force, some don't make it, who then turn around and say, now we want to claim a full military pension. Because they shouldn't. Because they still qualify to go and study, go and get under own steam. Because really they have not even belonged to an arm of service and had a permanent trade. So I'm saying we are a country that is resource scarce, the poverty levels are high, so we need to be finding ways of cushioning more South Africans. But at the same time, we need to begin to say, but is this the right way to do things? So that when you start pronouncing on the pension, you also say, I mean, if a minister jumps into the queue and says, I am now going to get this special pension, we will immediately jump up, DM and I, and say, are you crazy? There are many other people out there who do not get what you get per month. Let them get it because you are covered with your payment. So I'm beginning to say, South Africans, we must also think about the next person. If I can afford a loaf of bread, am I not going to be sympathetic to my neighbor who cannot even afford a slice? And begin to build that cohesiveness within society, because we do want to raise a nation that is that respects all of us. Some of us who are related to colors get very hurt when people say to us, you know what, we as colors you are discriminating, because that is what the member said right now. I don't think we should look at the people on the basis of race. I think we should look at the needs of South Africans. And I think we should be able, and I was thinking that because even on issues of housing, I'm leaving them to the DM because he's been working long with them. You will notice that we don't actually even build houses directly. So he will elaborate. But we have been able to get down to the municipalities to say, but there is this category of people. This is how much through you, because we do not have competency to build. But we also acknowledge the point that you are making. You can't, and some of us have been arguing for years, that you can't give people RDPs and not give them title deeds, because once I have a title deed, that enables me to access a loan and to do other things, and helps you to get better economic stability in your personal life. So I'm saying that when SAMVA has a conference DM, actually create a platform where we can talk about everything that ails us as military veterans. How do we come together? How do we sacrifice and then be discriminated against later? How do we understand the different systems? Even within APLA and Umkhonto weSizwe, as I said, not all of them would qualify. There are people who spent 15 years in Robben Island. They don't automatically qualify because they were in Robben Island to get the pensions. No. Because they still have to be subjected like any other. And if they fail that, they have to accept. But I'm hoping that what I didn't cover, you will cover. The budget, we do know that in the MTF we have enough to cover us. If you ask me the figures off by head, I will say for now I don't. I was hoping one person can bring us the budget so that again we don't ngabaza with the figures and tomorrow we are accused. But we should be able, comfortably be able to backdate members on the basis of what was there from the beginning of this financial year, backdate them to the beginning of a financial year 2022-23. Yeah.
Minister, thank you very much for the opportunity to add to the information shared. And once again, thank you for the questions. The inquiry around the budget, the person who posed the question actually has the figures right. Those figures that you are referring to in this financial year is 37 million that was set aside for this pension as a budget that we were going to need to take off. And in the subsequent years of the MTF period, the figures is, as you were putting them, it's 120 million and then 109 million to the outer year of the MTF. Those figures are correct. The challenge around housing, it's a problem we are grappling with. The Department of Military Veterans is not directly responsible to deliver housing to military veterans. We do this, as you possibly are aware, through the Department of Human Settlements and not the national department, but the provincial departments of human settlements. They are the delivery agents of DMV as far as housing is concerned. Now, there is in the bureaucracy already a challenge where you have an arrangement of that nature, because accountability is not direct. So there are provinces where housing of military veterans just did not seriously take off, and one of those provinces, especially as far as this problem is concerned, it's KZN. And the issues involved are very much provincial specific, the way housing delivery for military veterans was approached there, and what they have done with the budgets that were allocated for housing. We were in KZN just recently with the PTT, and we have discussed these challenges with the province, and I'm happy that the MEC for housing was there, and we expressed views about how we can quickly overcome the problem of KZN specifically. But as I'm saying, even in other provinces we have very slow delivery, and we are unable as the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans to actually get the machinery to function the way the MOU signed with Human Settlement anticipated. There are details that it will be time consuming to share here, and they differ from one province to another. In other provinces, they'll say it's the unavailability of stands where these houses can be built, things like that, stuff like that. But I must just say that there are also provinces where this program has not been responsibly handled. It has been unfortunately abused by the very same community of military veterans themselves. For instance, where the problem was very clear is in the Western Cape. Houses built for military veterans. The people who accessed those houses are people who are former statutory forces members who, of course, have houses. And they receive the houses, and what do they do with them? They sell them. They receive the houses, what do they do with them? They rent them out. Whereas the houses were intended for military veterans, as you know, who are destitute and who are sleeping in the open because they don't have houses. And those in the very same province, former non-statutory military veterans, are not getting these houses. So there are those challenges where houses are built, but they do not go to the intended recipients, the way the policy was designed. So those matters we are also, grappling with them. And it's interesting that, there is even a case where the houses built that were given to this, received by military veterans, they were all sold to one person. The person who bought them from these military veterans is one individual. It is worse that he's not even a South African. It is worse that the person is not even South African. So we have those abuses happening as well. It's not a lie. I've been there myself, and I met with military veterans, and I was in the department's offices in Cape Town, and this is what they shared with us. It's official information. I'm not talking hearsay. It's official information, but it's unfortunate, but we'll correct those things. We'll correct those things. The point about the pension, I think we should just repeat this point that the military veterans pension is a pension. It's a pension and not any other thing else. It's a pension. So it has to fit into the pension system of the country in its totality. And it is for that reason that the minister has made the point that we cannot, as government, allow double dipping. There are citizens who were not, for the longest time in their lives, gainfully employed, who were in exile, and as an example, who were in prison for political involvement, detention, and so on. Government decided to introduce a special pension for that, to say because they were not gainfully employed, their lives going forward would be looked after by the state through this pension, because there is no pension that they have built in their lives. Now, in these soldiers who were non-statutory members of non-statutory organizations, there are people who are not going to get this pension. Why? Because they integrated and went into the Defence Force, South African National Defence Force today. Their years of involvement before the integration are factored into the pensions that they must get as they leave the service at whatever point in their lives that happens. So government is taking care of them as well as far as their pensions in that way. But those who did not integrate and did not qualify for the special pension because they were below age, there is no pension for them. This pension is intended to close that gap. You can't have access, let's say, for instance, I was a member of the Transkei Defence Force. At some point, I left the service. It could have been before the integration or after the integration. I can't say I must also be allowed to have this pension if, when I left that Transkei Defence Force, my pension was accommodated or was provided by the state, or when I left after the integration, my pension includes the years that I've served in the Transkei Defence Force. My pension is sorted. So it will obviously be double dipping. Moving on to the South African Cape Corps, it is true that there are details there which we need to drill into, which may justify a review of how we deal with the South African Cape Corps. The point that they were saving on contracts, it's a debatable argument whether it justifies that they should get a pension, because as citizens, when they joined the Defence Force at the time, it is the kind of employment that as individuals were happy to go for. It is it's a profession that they decided to go for. The conditions of employment that were arranged with them by the state then cannot be made the burden of the government of today. They themselves would have had the responsibility to engage with their employers to make sure that the way their remuneration and their conditions of service were structured was such that it did not disadvantage them. If they were given 2-year contracts, then it means that the salary should have been high because they were not there for long periods. I'm just saying that those issues are issues that the state then should have attended to. However, the South African Cape Corps was demobilized or was disbanded before the integration. Question is, when the National Party government in 1992 decided to dissolve the South African Cape Corps, did they send them home with an arrangement to take care of their life after pension? That's what we need to inquire. That's what we need to suss out, Minister, you're right. That's what we need to suss out and see how we can make sure that indeed citizens are treated fairly, equally, without baseless discrimination. Discrimination will always be there, not in a negative way. I'm just saying that deciding on targeting certain communities within the populace will always be part of government policy. I must also make the point that, you see, in relation to welfare support that is in the policy of this department, as contained in the Act of 2011, welfare support was not a consideration in policy that was intended for former statutory forces. In policy, the rationale was that welfare is needed. And when I'm talking welfare, I'm talking housing, health, education, and all of that. That support was necessary for those who were not gainfully employed when they were in service, the former non-statutory forces members. Welfare was meant to cushion them, to come to their rescue, because the assumption was that those who were in the statutory forces were, like all other employees of the state, looked after. They would have had houses, or there would have been some policy in their remuneration that looked into housing. If the state was not concerned about the housing of civil servants at the time, well, we can't now lift only this group of civil servants who were soldiers and leave everybody else and say, we are giving these ones housing. Government will have to take a policy that considers everybody who was a civil servant. All I'm saying is, welfare was never intended for statutory forces military veterans. It was intended for the destitute former non-statutory military veterans. The SRD, or maybe before just I move on to the SRD, it is important for us to at least share a common understanding of the policy consideration behind the pension and the policy of support that the military veterans is basing its interventions on. Soldiers, yesterday's soldiers who are military veterans that we are talking about, they are, as far as the state is concerned, they are entitled to assistance by the Military Veterans Department as far as their economic livelihoods are concerned. Because all of them, whether non-statutory forces or statutory forces, they were professionals with skills that today they cannot rely on them in order to eat a living. And that is why it is important when we're talking training, when we're talking business opportunities, when you're talking all kind of projects that must be rolled out by DMV, there you cannot discriminate, because all of these military veterans were soldiers yesterday. The challenges that they have are the same in that respect. And it is important that now and again, when we deal with the DMV, expectations on DMV, we must know what is coming out of that department and why. The SRD, it is, of course, embarrassing that there are military veterans who still do not know how the SRD, the Social Relief of Distress Grant, is being applied for. These are the deficiencies our department has. And we must apologize to the community of military veterans that indeed, with respect to this grant, we have not covered ourselves in glory. And that is why today in the statement, we are raising this matter to say we are going to go back into the department to get convincing administrative arrangements that will allow military veterans to access this SRT, because there are military veterans who are not going to get this pension, but who are unemployed and who are just as destitute as all those who are not employed in our communities, that must get this SRT topped up by the DMV as we are rolling it out. So we must make it a point that none of them is left behind. They must get that SRT. We are going to do our best to rectify that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, DM. I think as part of concluding this program, we'll ask Minister to make a few points as part of her closing remarks. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think from the floor there are clearly issues which we must take into a discussion as SAMVA. Because it is important for us to be bringing in all the different military yes, so that we can begin to balance out things, because that platform, which recognizes all associations, must always be where we come together as a country to say, what do we do? Now, this problem is not just a South African problem. Where we stand is that wherever we go, we have also learned and continue to be learning from other countries on how they are dealing with this matter. Issues of the capturing of heritage, we should have a very focused way within the department of ensuring that no association feels that it is ignored. It is not given its state to claim its role in history. So we want to create that. The one thing we have not spoken to DM is that DM was very busy. The coordination for all military vets to have access for medical assistance at provincial level. And if we could, even at clinic level, because unfortunately what we did, we jumped to say that we will provide subsidized public transport. South Africa doesn't have a defined public transport where that can become a reality. So sometimes we even bring in things that we do know we are going to fail dismally in providing. So how do we make sure that all vets can, as military vets, access military, medical aid? Then I want to say that military vets should also remember, especially the ones who come from before 1994, before the integration, that we are actually a dying species. That it can't be that we still have beneficiaries of 18 years. Because therein also lies the problem, because as people keep on trying to come in, we identify a lot of frauds coming into the systems, and one looks and says, but your age, it can't be that you qualify. When we look at beneficiaries, all countries look at the first generation, and if it is the second generation, it must be that the parents of this grandchild who then became the responsibility and was adopted by the military really became now a proper dependent, and it can be proven. So that we do not also, South Africans, create this thing, Yokuti, because my great-grandfather was a military vet, 5 generations down, because at most countries carry it to a second generation. Not every benefit. We must also begin to, see how we say all military veterans. And we've been looking and having a discussion, especially around issues of the defense industry. Because in whichever country you go to, the military veterans come together, and through SAMVA, one would have thought that by now, in the defense industry of South Africa, we would have found a way where the military vets would be gaining something. Not simply because they were, but also putting something. So I'm saying that opportunities are there. We have been talking to the National Department of Health, as I said, to make sure that we can, through them, filter down even to a clinic level in the provinces and in the districts for military vets to have easy access. DM has also been running around on the issues of housing. We want to make sure that on the issues of education, we now begin to understand exactly who is demanding to be educated and on what. And why we think as military vets, our children and our grandchildren qualify to benefits that ordinary South Africans cannot access. So I'm saying if the military vets also see themselves as a class in their own, you begin to create that distance within your communities. And that is why you have incidents where they are actually attacked instead of being embraced, instead of being protected by their communities. We have also said, as far as housing is concerned, it is disingenuous for us to house people in communities they don't come from originally. Because if they don't know you, they will reject you. So where we build houses, we must make sure that as a department, we know exactly where our veterans are, the acceptance levels, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying that I want the SAMVA to go to a conference. I don't want a hurried conference. I want a conference where we can really deal with the nuts and bolts, where we can look at things. And we need to give ourselves enough space, DM, so that we can invite the relevant ministers. Agriculture. In any country, I was talking to the minister where Uganda. And they say, no, we have allocated land. We're not spoon-feeding them on that land. We have allocated land. We have assisted where we can. Our military vets are beginning to get into the food space. That's where we need to push. Now, when we open a door, military vets must grab it. Not frauds. Proper military vets. Not generations later. Now. People who can really claim and people who really are in dire straits. I'm saying if a military vet, let her say 25 years, DM, but if this is a billionaire today, why do they want to claim special pension? Why do you not move off because you can afford and allow those who are destitute to claim? Because we are supposed to be the first guardians of the Constitution here, because we've given our lives. But if we ourselves cannot sympathize with fellow citizens, then we are in trouble. You are supposed to be that backdrop that we run to. Where are you when we think that democracy is failing? Not because we want to put you into politics, but because we need the people who fought for the liberation of this country to guide. My point here being that it would be good to go to that SAMVA conference, all of us there. It would be good to give ourselves time. It would be good for us to finish with the 1 mil, 2 million, 3 mil, so that those who are closer can access their military health there. It would also be good to begin to make equal opportunities across to all the vets. It would help the Department of Military Veterans very much if members of the associations of SAMVA don't create havoc for us. It's becoming fashionable, DM. First it was the Cape Corps splitting. Then now we don't want to get there as a department. We want to look at military vets. We want to deal with that. If you have your issues there, deal with them within there. We don't want to be dragged into the politics there. We want to focus on making sure that the military vet gets the benefits, is looked after in the manner that they need to. But as I say, in 50 years' time, this department can't exist. You know why? Because even within the DOD, I see they have a very good, I talk to young soldiers, alongside what in the fields that in the services that they are, you've got electricians, you've got, they are getting secondary skills that will enable them as they get out of the defense, whether at retirement or any time, to leave. So that is the direction we must do, so that tomorrow we don't have to pick up because this category was discriminated against and we need to rectify things. I want to say that when we are aware that we have provincial offices as DMV that are dysfunctional, we have said that we need to put people there who will give quality services to the vets. So in the provinces, when we are not servicing you properly, don't keep quiet, tell us, so that we deal with the staff that gets full-time employment but are not doing the right job. In the department, if you get any response that deals with you as an individual, your dignity, your standing, please inform us. Let us deal with it. Because at all costs, we are grateful that people availed themselves when the country needed them, whether they were in the statutory forces or in the non-statutory forces. We want to always salute our servicemen. When this country gets into trouble, the second line of defense are the veterans. And we want South Africans to begin to do that. We want to also reintroduce, and we are hoping that the military vets will be down there on the ground, the young ones. Discipline in South Africa is going. In other countries, as young as 8 years, they begin to understand what patriotism is all about. That's our job as military vets. We non-paid because we once said we will fight and defend our land. So I'm simply saying, for now, the Colored Corps, let us have a sit down. I've said this when we were in Cape Town, that we need to get in there. We need to see exactly what happened there. Like DM says, in 1992. We need to look at the types of contracts. I am definitely going to be appealing against the court ruling that said MSDS must now get military pensions, because they were not even now permanent members of SANDF. So that it must not be felt that we are taking particular stances when it suits us. That we are always consistent, but where we are called upon, for instance, housing, making sure people eat, making sure that medically, making sure that people who are traumatized, whether they served 6 months or not by military action, they are looked after. So I'm saying, I know we will never satisfy every person, but where we can, we must be as honest and as quick and as positive as we can to make sure that we really look after your welfare. So as I'm saying, we're negotiating the space for clinics. I know that you know that your dependents can apply for higher education, NSFAS, and whatever. If it means that you use us to say, but these are military, this is a category that you cannot ignore, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister and Deputy Minister. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions and for your attention. We have come to the end of the media briefing. Those who need one-on-ones, we can make those arrangements. Talk to myself or Lebogang. Be visible, Lebogang. Yeah. And you can also do it via GCIS. We'll communicate with them. Thank you.
No, it's fine. Just it's fine. It smells
Haven't they been taking it a line record?
Call them, huh?
Yeah, we can. If they're still recording, I'll find it there.
I'm right.
Because I think already.